All right, we are officially live. I am Dido Bala, and this is the State of Kindness podcast. I could not be more excited to be here with Noor, who's joining all the way from Jordan. You're in Jordan, you're in Amman right now, right?
I am indeed, yes.
Thank you so much for being here. So, the State of Kindness podcast is about this idea that when you look around the world, it is easy to assume that everything is going the opposite way of positive. It's easy to assume that everything is bad, everything is wrong. We have our negativity bias. If you turn on the news, there's bad news. If you get on social media, it's all that's not working. And with the access that we have with technology right now, when you wake up in the morning, it takes 2 minutes to download all the negative information that happened around the world when you were sleeping. And we know, though, that there's a lot of optimism out there as well, a lot of kindness out there as well, a lot of mindfulness. And our goal is to talk about the skill of emotional regulation so you can be kind to yourself in order to practice kindness towards others and towards the world as well. And when I think about you and the fact that we met at this point, I don't know. It might be a decade. I'm not gonna say it might because it might be 2017 or maybe not quite 10 years, but it's been a really really long time. And even back then, when mindfulness and conscious parenting and education was still not the popular thing that it is now, you and I were already having these conversations. So, New, I want to just take us all the way back. Back then, what is it about you that 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago made you already think about conscious education, optimism, mindfulness, parenting? Like, what is that? What are those thoughts that you had back then, which of course now are more accepted? Take us back there.
So I think it's been, wow, quite the journey that you and I have shared. And I want to highlight how excited I am that we're finally, doing this. And we've worked together in the past, but this is even, more exciting. And hopefully we'll get you over to Jordan at some point as well. So for me, it's been a very personal journey. Looking back now and connecting the dots and realizing how much I struggled growing up when it came to my mental well being and my nervous system and that calibration of understanding what was going on inside or the lack of. And so, both at school and at home, there was a significant missing piece of skills, understanding, vocabulary, language, even if it was any sort of adult who could not only accompany me, but kind of help me figure that out and unbox it. And beyond that, offer skills where I could better manage the deep moments of anxiety, overthinking, over worrying, poor habits, at school of sleeping late and where that burnout, of wanting to perform and unable to, and I mean, it's that cycle. And later in my young adulthood, it was becoming a mother that really had that turning point. I feel where it all just clicked. It's like, you know what? It is so important to me to understand the self. How can we maximize one's well being? And if there are skills that I can learn to optimize my day to day, then why not? And so that's where really my journey began with more focus, more purpose, and study as much as I could, different disciplines, expose myself to different schools of thought. And here we are today, where it's almost become, I don't want to say a trend, but it's become this constant theme that you hear about, and but it's so necessary. And what I love about what's being offered in today's world is that it's science
Hmm.
backed. So we have evidence. Neuroeducation proves the importance of this work and how it rewires our brain. So here we are, trying to as best as I know how to make that little change, positive change in the world.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a perfect place to start because when I think about what we call the state of kindness, it is a state where you notice and accept and hold space for all emotions, right? It's really important. You notice them, you accept them, and then you hold space for all your emotions so that you can regulate your nervous system. Because if you don't notice the emotions, there's not much you can do with it. If you don't accept them and fight them and imply that you aren't an emotional human being, you aren't successful either. And then if you don't hold space, then you don't have the chance to actually get to the regulation part of things. So that's why we teach folks to live life from a state of kindness. But you know what's interesting about educators and parents, I've noticed all around the world. Educators and parents have something in common. They are they are in it for the other. They are in it for the kid. They are in it for the student.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, they tend to skip themselves. They tend to think about how can I spend hours with parents and educators and they always grab what I'm saying. They can't wait to go try with their kids, can't wait to go try with their students. And often they dismiss themselves entirely, which has not been a recipe for success in the past. So as you think about your journey as a mom, when that click kind of happened, what was your experience with taking care of you first?
Right. I think the biggest turning point was when I was going through one of the most significant, let's say, life shifts that I was experiencing. It was, wait a minute, I can really design my experience. So it came from a space of taking responsibility for my life, one, and then two, being able to take action and gaining the skills in order to practice what it was that I wanted to create. So I think it's so important to highlight that whether you're an educator or a parent, we have a responsibility to offer our best versions of ourselves in order to model, mirror, and create the right environment and container to allow the child, the student, to flourish into um, their potential ultimately.
Yes, love that. So I want to get more tactical now and actually teach folks because the people who are listening are getting inspired by being given being allowed because folks often just need to be told it's okay for you to take care of yourself. So we've done that part. If you're a parent, you're an educator, just know there's nothing wrong with you thinking about yourself and starting by caring for you. So once you do well, the kids can do well as well.
Yeah.
Now let's go a little deeper into the how of that. So you
But I
mentioned
think it's
something. Go
deeper
ahead.
than just, yeah, than just taking care of yourself, right? It's about
Mm-hmm.
doing the deep work. So uncovering your how you've been conditioned, tapping into your triggers, tapping into that area of you that is perhaps unhealed, or like you mentioned before, bringing that layer of awareness. So with awareness, we bring those layers of, you know, what are the aspects of my behavior, of my mindset that need somewhat of realignment.
How do we do that?
You highlighted it beautifully at the beginning. It is a practice of awareness. It is identifying those peak moments, like really emotionally charged moments, and facing them with curiosity instead of reactivity or rejection. That is a great starting point.
Okay, this is really, really cool. And I want to kind of hone in on that, right? So, anybody who's listening right now, so here's a simple tactical skill that Noor just introduced us to. Find time when you're sitting somewhere quietly and comfortably when nobody can bother you. You know your peaceful space. You know your kind space where when you're there, you're in the zone, it's just you and it's all about you. and allow yourself to dream a little bit about the things that have been bothering you, perhaps the things you've been avoiding. And it's a reflection around those peak moments. We all have those moments where, if your life was a movie, there's one where, oh, things just went up, and it's intense, and then there's tension, then there's conflict, and then there's resolution, and then you go up again. Identify those moments and write them down. Right? What are three moments that were those peak experiences, moments of emotions to you? Write them down, and then observe them with curiosity, as a detective as opposed to as a judge, right? And when you observe them with curiosity, there's something powerful about sometimes noticing that the version of you then that was experiencing that just needed somebody who's the version of you now to observe it and tell them, you know what? We understand where this comes from, but guess what? Maybe you're okay now. Or maybe you can reframe things this way. Like, the actual solution on what to do with it depends widely, but step one is that awareness. So try the exercise. And it may be a little uncomfortable if it's the first time you do this, because your brain might naturally reject those experiences, especially if they were negative. And that's why the awareness, the holding space without judgment, is key. So if you are noticing that you're feeling judgmental towards yourself as you revisit these experiences, just know that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. So thanks for that specific example, because the folks who are listening want tactical things so they can take today and they can practice. Is there anything else that comes to your mind when you think about ways that folks can actually do the work, the deep work of going inside, going inward, and then finding out who they are and then beginning to work on it? Anything else?
It's it's a journey. So we're always gonna have something to work on. It's not like there's a beginning and there is an end, and that is important to highlight. Different context, different moments in one's life, career, personal, emotional, will have us journey through instances where we handle things better or perhaps worse. However, the opportunity here is to get to know yourself to the degree whereby you develop tactics, like skills, like as if you go to the gym, right? And you want to build your upper body versus your lower body. Well, this is a beautiful way of creating skill sets for your brain. How to optimize the way you respond to the world around you, and what are your techniques that work for you, that really nurture a space that encourage life affirming behaviors. Because our nature is negative, whether we like it or not, right? Our brain is wired to survive, and because of that, we're always either, fight, flight, or freeze mode. That is like our natural tendency. So when we're able to anchor and understand the practice of awareness, make it part of who we are in terms of viewing the world, perspective, building relationships, etc., then it's like, you've created that scaffolding of being able to build further and further for yourself. And that's
Yeah.
what's beautiful about the work you do, and approaching parenting and education with this mindset, which is an opportunity of redesign. Every moment we have that opportunity of inviting new experiences, inviting new ways of doing a specific task or responding to a certain environment. So I feel it's a journey that's nice to be shared, or somehow have, whether it's a coach or taking a course. I do feel it's something that is hard to do completely on your own, and having someone, or accountability, or to bounce ideas back and forth is very, very helpful as well. And just wanting to, right? I don't know how you started perhaps, and you feel you could also share what part of you led you to the work that you're doing today. But for me, it was a very personal, deep hunger um, to really transform my daily experiences.
Yeah, it's everything you're saying, right? So you're highlighting the importance of reminding folks that you get to design how things happen within your life to an important extent, right? We all know that the things that tend to worry us, many of them we don't control, right? You don't control what the economy is going through. There's so many things you don't control, the natural disasters. So there are many things. However, you have a lot of power and control and agency when it comes to how you respond, how you react, how you show up. And that opportunity to redesign, I think, is one that once you have awareness of that, then you can start to do something about it. So that for me, it was the same thing. I just realized, if this really were a movie, I can actually be in charge. And to go tactical on folks who are listening here again, for me, it was as simple as if there was background music in my movie, what would it be? And I would go home and play that music. If I wanted a few extra characters to be around me, who would that be? And I would invite those people. Like, I'm not joking. It is that silly, that simple. And having that experience of saying, I would like to have a moment where I have this kind of music in the background, these kinds of conversations with these kinds of people, and actually doing it and seeing that I could do it and then it went well, it unlocked something in me and reminded me that I really get to redesign my life in so many different ways. And why wouldn't I want to do it often? So that's the first piece of what you just shared. But the second piece is the community aspect. Look, we're social beings, social creatures. We crave community. We crave validation. We crave accountability. And so it is crucial to find someone. I always say you all need to have that safe person. You're that person who, when you're getting emotionally triggered, you're like, if I just see their name on my phone, or if I see their face, or if they hug me, who's that person that who makes your nervous system just relax? That's another tactic. Find that person. And it does not have to be something complicated where you analyze all the emotions and situations. It can be as simple as being in the presence of that person. And imagine then building community with multiple of those people. That's why I need to recharge every now and then. I need to find a conference or something where like my people are going. It's like 2,000 of us, dreamers, like naive optimists who just believe in the visualization of a positive world. And like, we really believe that being together in the same space creates a magic that recharges me. And then when I go back into spaces where perhaps there aren't as many folks who are like me, I'm charged up. And that community aspect is crucial. So thanks for highlighting it.
I completely agree with you. I just came back from one of those experiences, and it's like exactly what you expressed and described. You just come back recharged and ready to give some more.
Yeah, you talked about something very specific, and I think this was regarding kids. So let's continue the journey here about the self, but start going into the parents who are listening, who are thinking about their kids. You talked about modeling, mirroring, and then creating a space. Like this is, I think it's really, really important to slow down here because as an educator, as a parent, somebody might think, well, what I'm trying to do is create a space where my kids can be the versions of themselves that would become the kind of adults that society needs or the kind of adults that they themselves would be proud of. How do I create that environment? But before talking about creating the environment, you talked about modeling and mirroring. So take us from, we just talked about how to look into yourself, how to design your own experience, your own life. From that, walk us through what modeling and mirroring mean before creating the space.
So, specifically with the early years, so we're talking about 0 to 7, when you're facing the journey of a child growing up, children really absorb and learn by the way we show up, what we do and what we don't do, more than what we say. So that really needs to be highlighted. So if we want to teach kindness, we need to embody kindness and show acts of kindness. And what does that look like? If we would like certain values to be passed on, it's again not about sitting and lecturing the child or come, let's do a gratitude circle and just say what we're grateful for. That is a great starting point, but it's deeper than that. It's how do we again bring it into action? How does that show up in life? And so, both as educator and parents, I feel this is a really important aspect that we need to pay close attention to. What are we modeling? So, what are our daily routines like? Are we present? What are our nonverbals? Is there eye contact? Is our tone of voice super high, super low? Do we, what's the demeanor that we carry? And noticing the impact that has on our surroundings and on the relationships that we're building. So that's
So
with the modeling piece.
yeah, the modeling piece then, Noor, so to highlight that for folks, so if somebody's listening and they want to go deeper into that, an exercise you can do is learn how to begin to watch yourself in the sense of not just what are the things that you say, but what do you actually embody? Because it's one thing to tell a kid to be kind, but what do you embody? And what this is where folks need to be honest with themselves. If there was a camera watching you all day, every day, what would it see that you embody, right? This is no judgment, but you
Exactly.
need to do the work because if that imaginary camera pointed towards you would actually show that perhaps you aren't embodying kindness, then it's okay. But we just need to know that because if you don't do that work and just assume that you are teaching kindness without going through understanding what you embody, you're missing a crucial step. So to think about the actions, like Noor just said, what are you actually doing? How do you show up? If there was somebody watching, what would they see? If you're not happy with what you're seeing, that's okay. Once again, the good news is now you have awareness. Now you can do something about it and ask yourself the question, what would it look like for me to embody kindness? What would it look like for me to embody positivity and optimism and forgiveness and grace? And whatever that image is, you get to then practice that and see how you're doing. And that's how you can actually improve the modeling part.
I think another good example that I'm sure we all face, even in our best of days, is the distraction with technology. So whether it's our phones or our iPads or just being on the screen, it's unintentional, but the impact of lack of eye contact, for example, when we're speaking or I'm distracted, I'm doing something, it's created another divider or another, let's say, missed opportunity for connection. And those are so precious in today's world where we're really living and designing systems that are overloaded, super fast paced, and it's never enough. So that is I feel something quite relatable to all of us, even for us in this field. We get caught up in those moments. And I know, particularly for myself, I really need to be intentional in my relationship with technology. So I really park my phone, I leave it somewhere else in the home, and this is my time here now, doing whatever task, whether it's with my children or anything else that I choose to do, so that you're able to come back to the practice of connecting to yourself and to whatever your task you're trying to engage or moment you want to cherish.
Yeah, let's dig deep into that. That's a good one. Technology, I mean, we are all victims. Nobody can claim that somehow they don't get affected. We affected by this. We all get affected. So okay. So putting your phone away. So there are a few things that I wonder, right? So I went through a phase where so I don't have an alarm right now, which is a whole other thing because my body just knows when to wake up. So I don't need it to have that phone there. But here's one I challenge folks to do. I challenge everyone for the next 7 days. Do not take your cell phone to the bathroom. Just don't. Don't do it. Don't do it. It is, I'm telling you, it is so funny because like we didn't have cell
Your
phones
body will
before.
thank you.
It's like we think, I promise you, try 7 days. Your body will thank you, your mind will thank you. And at first you will notice how addicted we are to our phones because you're gonna feel like
Absolutely.
empty, like, oh, something is missing. I tried it, so now I don't need, it's like it's I'm trained now, but every adult, this
Hmm.
is let's start with us the adults. Try this. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Something funny too is when we had a call scheduled a few weeks ago, and you actually misplace your phone. And my response was, good for you, right? Having misplaced your phone for several hours, like one person might look at it and be like, oh my God, how can I be so disconnected from everything? But the other perspective is, good for you because guess what you're not doing when you misplace your phone is you aren't ignoring the folks who are in front of you to get in the phone, and guess what you are doing, you are present in the moment. So for this modeling piece, I think technology is a big one that folks can think about, ways in which they can be a little more mindful about usage without judging themselves, because we all fall victims to the addiction
Hmm.
that is technology.
And the dance here is to, again, with kindness towards
Hmm.
yourself. Sorry. Is again, redesign. You know, we have the opportunity every instant, every moment. There's a choice. You know, to either keep on doing what we're doing if it's serving you and adding value, or choose to try something different and see how that sits. And it'll look differently for different homes, different contexts. But I do think it's important to also bring that front and forward, where it's like, you know, it's up to us really, what we say yes to, what we say no to, and how we choose to live that experience. And it doesn't mean no to technology or completely forget social media, etc. I believe it's very powerful. It's a great means to be connected on different levels globally, etc. Yet, design it. You know, limit it, design it, and those check-ins. Because I've even fallen trap of being way too much on my phone, and then I notice I'm jittery, or
Mm.
I notice I'm off, or that my body isn't. You know, I'm like, why do I feel, you know, more consumed? You know, why is my head buzzing a little more than usual?
Mm.
And it's more often than not because I'm looking and I'm comparing, and there's a side of me that feeds into everything that's on that device, you know?
Yeah, because we're
So
all
for
human
your own
beings.
well-being. Yeah, exactly.
And if let's go deeper into the technology side of things, because there's the layer of disconnecting from technology at times and having a balance. But then there's the layer of when you are engaging with technology, what kind of content are you engaging with? That piece is crucial because, you know, I love the exercise about positive psychology when they ask you to that you find what you seek, right? If I tell you about a green car in the morning, and at lunch somehow on the way back home in the evening you just start seeing all these green cars because I prime your brain for
Yeah.
it, and so you find what you seek. But you know what's actually fascinating to me that I've been thinking about is the for you my for you page, right? The algorithm is, I mean,
It's crazy.
you can tell me anything you want about your interests, your passions. I don't need to talk to you. All I need is to grab your phone, go on the For You page, because that For You page tells me exactly how you spend your time. And so I challenge everyone as well today. Grab your phone. You don't have to share this with anybody.
Explore
This is,
that page.
explore. Go to that page. Don't and it'll tell you a truth about you that maybe you don't even know. And if what you confront is something you don't like, guess what? You can do something about it because you we talked about designing in life outside of technology, but you get to design within technology as well. It's the things that you train your algorithm to feed you that it feeds you. So you can also work on when you have your phone, when you are online, what kind of content are you spending your time on? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that is a very, very important layer where what is that you're spending time on? Again, highlighting, is it adding or is it taking away?
Mm, mm.
And we go back to where we started, awareness.
Yeah, it's big. So awareness is so big, and so from the modeling, then what when you say mirroring, right? So we talked about you modeling, mirroring, and then creating the space when it comes to working with kids and parenting and teaching. What does mirroring mean and or look like?
For me, it's again in the context of the early years
Hmm.
where we're as parents and educators being those, we are the reference point for these young human beings, little human beings, on how to navigate the world, right? So we're their reference. Therefore, if there's a certain behavior that we would like to redesign in them or see in them, for example, take a tantrum moment. If I face a tantrum by trying to scold the child or yell at them or discipline them by spanking or whatever your technique was, I don't know how you grew up, but we've all had that fair share of
Oh yeah, I got
old
spanked big time.
school, both back in the day in school and at home.
Yep.
And so the mirroring piece is really about, again, embodying a behavior that we want to reinforce. So the behavior that we're being presented isn't one that we want to reinforce. What we need to mirror back is the one we want to reinforce. So it's
Mm,
a calm demeanor. It's one that welcomes perhaps a very emotionally charged child with calm. And so that is the way, and a very deep, and in my opinion, the way I've been learning the right way to start teaching um, these ways of being that become who they are. And it's not always easy, right? Because they're children at the end of the day. You are human. You have days you're more patient than others. It's only natural to have your ups and downs. Yet even when you're unable to mirror or model the way you'd like to, you just go back to repair, which is
mm.
going back and again redesigning. So the mirroring piece is very, very important. And again, I go back to the early years because that's where I really focus my work on. But you can even do it with teens. I mean, when you think about it, if your teenager is very reactive or very, you know, um, just in that moment of really powerful, explosive emotions, you're not going to get anywhere with responding or reacting in a way that equals that, right? So it's about, creating the right environment to mirror what it is that you'd like them to learn.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. And you mentioned one more word there that I want to highlight. You mentioned the word repair. So the cycle, right, needs to be one that has the steps that we're discussing, such as model, mirror, to create the space. But knowing that this is a forever journey, right? You're never gonna be like, oh, I mastered everything. It's great. Like it's great. Like there's no actual emotional emergency in my life. That's never gonna happen. Let's just admit that. So since we know that, now the question is, how do you deal with when things don't go well? And you know what's interesting? There are multiple ways of doing this. And sometimes without thinking about it, we skip the repair portion. Like, but if you don't repair, like how can you actually move forward? You may think you're moving forward, but you're not. So can you please say a little more about that repairing? Because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
extremely important.
Well, as an adult, when we admit that we've done something wrong or we've made a mistake, our ego gets in the way. It's embarrassing. I may apologize to a kid or to my teen or Many of us have not been brought up that way, right? I don't think my parents have ever apologized for anything. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, let's say, the norm. However, it comes from a place where, again, you are showing through your actions how I recognize I could have done better in this moment. It doesn't excuse the behavior. I felt what I felt. It doesn't excuse or, justify the reaction. However, I'm here to acknowledge that, sorry, and you take it from there. The apology, the redesign. Next time we find ourselves in this scenario, let's do it differently. And of course, depending on the age we're talking about, you tweak the language, you tweak the way you do this. But it can be done from toddler all the way to any later on in life, any moment.
There's a big lesson there about the ego, about being okay having been wrong. Because I know certainly where I grew up, well, first of all, I don't think, but so yes, my parents never said sorry to me about anything. And I think they would argue they've never been wrong. So that, so it's like, what's there to apologize for? And then, so I'm slightly joking here, but it's like, it's a really
No, I
important
get it.
concept to reckon with. It's like the
It
adults
is.
are positioned to be these all-knowing, all-powerful creatures
The
that are,
author, yeah, the authority, right?
yeah, yes, this is the authority. How could they be wrong? So I remember when I was teaching, and I'm terrible at spelling, and I would just make all these spelling mistakes. And I had no issues with that. I would ask the students to correct me and help me, and I thought it was funny. And a colleague of mine told me one day that he could never do that. He could never show the students that he didn't know how to spell something. And at first, I didn't understand it, but then I had to just connect back to, again, where I grew up. And I was like, hey, actually, I can see that because the teacher is supposed to know everything. You don't know everything, dear teacher, and that's okay. You don't know everything, dear parent, and that's okay. And
And
practicing saying, my bad, that's it. I know I was upset. I understand why I was upset. I said what I said, but my bad. But there's something powerful about practicing that, and I think that more of us, especially adults, should try it because it might be uncomfortable if you did not grow up receiving that from adults. But there's something magical about just owning up to it, and the kids appreciate, and it helps to repair.
100%. And there's an element of lightness and playfulness too. In this field that we're in, it's a lot of deep work and serious. We go down in very uncomfortable emotions, yet at the same time, I love to bring, let's play, let's make it simple, let's make it micro practices, let's make it bite sizes, let's lighten up the deep work, but in easy ways, just ease into it. It's not a race, it's not a place of judgment. It's, let's say, a playground. So, what's there today? And with that, you attract that kind of energy as well.
The play. So when I was just still I was studying, I was taking a master's of science of education in secondary education, and as I was looking into the neuroscience based backed ways to create the best classroom environment, one thing that I have never heard anywhere else I learned about was the J factor. J is for joy. The joy factor.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually an element of intentionally trying to create joy in the classroom. Even if you're a math teacher, even if you're a reading teacher, even if you're a science teacher, in addition to all that curriculum and content, intentionally, I'm talking about like planning jokes, planning moments for play. And that transformed my experience as an educator when I got that awareness. Because so anybody who comes to anything that I do, teaching, training, if you leave an hour with me without having smiled or laughed, there's something wrong. So we are always going to laugh. There's something about playing. So thank you for highlighting that because it's deep work. It's a lot, but sometimes allowing yourself to be a kid again, to not take yourself too seriously and to create the playground that allows you to repair and just be. Sometimes that works miracles. So for those who are listening, it's also worth asking yourself, when was the last time I actually played? Whether it be
Yeah,
with
we
your kids.
take each other too seriously, for sure.
And so as we get ready to close here, I want to share with you, so the core beliefs that make uh, us who we are at Kindness Matters. There are four core beliefs, so guiding beliefs I want to share with you and see what each of them kind of brings up to your mind. The first one is that kindness is an infinite resource. It is one that we all have a lot of. I don't have one small little like bucket of kindness where if I give you some, I lose some. There's so much of it, and we should freely give it. So when you hear that concept of kindness is an infinite resource, what comes up for you?
Yes, you see my face, I'm like smiling. Um, what I was preparing for our conversation today, I was even reflecting, and I'm like, it's interesting how we, as a society and the world we live in, we need to highlight such values and ways of being and make them a mission. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, you would assume that we just know, right?
Or that somehow it's like, I don't know, weaved into values, which they are, and how schools are mapped out and designed. And so, yes, coming back to your question here is, I mean, why not? If you can be kind, why would you choose otherwise? And those who do choose otherwise, I genuinely believe it's because of a journey of barriers that they've built from a young age through experiences, and they don't know any better because they haven't been invited to explore a different way of seeing and being in this world.
And if you are the person around them, share some of that kindness, because sometimes that's what they need. And that takes me into our second core guiding belief, which is actions matter. And it is such a matter of fact statement that it almost seems silly to mention it. And yet it is so important to spend some time on that. Like every little small action matters. Like you would be shocked to realize how little it took to motivate someone, how little it took to shift somebody's perspective, how little it took to shift somebody's nervous system. And sometimes it's a really, really, really small action that anybody can take. So what does that bring up for you?
A smile, a good morning, I don't know, waiting for someone to pass before you, opening the door. The thing is also, we're always walking like this. So even now, that is kind of the challenge, right? Um, it's become the exception, not the norm, in these little gestures that go such a long way. And yes, I am completely resonant with let's let's do more of that, and the world needs more of that for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned the smile. I'm telling you, you don't even know how powerful it's been to have a stranger just smile at me when I was having a bad day. And there was something about that that completely transformed my entire day. So smile, smile.
Just
And
how easy is that?
right, it does not cost you much. Just smile. That action matters. And the third guiding belief is capacity for good. This is an interesting one. Everyone has the capacity for good. Sometimes the version of yourself that shows up is not the best one. It is not the one that you are proud of, and it is the one that you actually want to hide. But it's important for folks to remember that even when that happens, as a human being, you have the capacity for good without you always. And I remember working with students many years ago who, once I taught them about the brain and emotional regulation, and they understood why sometimes they quote unquote misbehave. A kid told me, "Oh, that means I'm not bad." And I asked him, "What do you mean by that?" He told me a story that essentially made me realize that adults around him, because of his behavior, had essentially labeled him bad. And even if these adults weren't doing this intentionally, this kid had internalized that he is a bad kid. And so that capacity for good is something that we should spend more time highlighting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, adults around young children, whatever they constantly hear, that becomes their inner voice. So even if it's just playful, um, I don't know how you grew up with your siblings, but for example, I was the bubbly one, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm the youngest of three. The middle one was, I don't know what, the oldest was the cheeky, naughty one, and the
Mm-hmm.
middle one was the balanced or whatever. So we end up really believing what we're constantly fed and told at home and at school, the perspective of the adults who are around us, and somehow we start limiting ourselves because that's who we believe we are. So, genuinely, the example you just gave is, oh, wait a minute, so that doesn't mean I'm this or that. And we need to bring awareness to that, each child might have strengths and weaknesses, but their character is constantly evolving. It's constantly growing. And I think nurturing a mindset of curiosity and highlighting their strengths and weaknesses, but not boxing them or stereotyping or labeling them, is so, so important. And yes, they might have a talent. One is more sporty, one is more musical, one is more whatever, a brain, and it's fine, but that doesn't take away from them being able to learn new skills in somewhere completely different, right? So we play a huge role in that as parents and as educators. And talking about the brain and all that, I must share this story with you today, that happened today. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old boys. So they were in the playing room, and you've met them
Mm-hmm.
online when we've had our odd calls, and they had a fight. One smacked the other one got angry, and the younger one is very reactive. The minute he gets angry, he just woof, gets physical. And the older one doesn't. He'll just stand still and cry. So we were unpacking that moment. I grabbed them both, we sat down, and we unpacked it. And my 4-year-old looked at me and said, Mama, my brain, my brain takes control, and my hand just goes like this, like, and I'm like, you're right. That is exactly what happens. It is normal. It is normal
Mm-hmm.
for your brain to do that. It is natural. It is okay. But what I'm trying for you to learn slowly, slowly is, and then his older brother says, take a few deep breaths before you decide to like smack me next time. And that exchange for me was priceless, because I told my youngest, I'm like, my brain now knows not to hit. But that doesn't mean I don't feel the same emotions as you do when you get upset or angry. The point here is all emotions are welcomed. What is not okay is behaviors that hurt others, such as hitting, yelling, whatever. So I found that moment so interesting, and they get it. He's 4, he's not like, and the way he just expressed it in his very simplistic manner, I absolutely loved. So yeah, I mean, let's have those conversations with our children.
That's beautiful, and I love that, right? Because he's 100% right. It's his brain, and if I can contrast with the example I gave earlier, a kid that young understanding that it is his brain that did something distances his full being to the action in a point where he can learn that I can change that. It is not me. I am not the embodiment of this one negative action. My brain did something, and I can do something about that in the future to do better. So I love that. And the last core belief is shared humanity. So let's close with that one. Like we as individuals, as human beings, no matter what we want to say or want to believe, we are connected. We have one shared humanity. One of my favorites, just kind of metaphors about life or perspective taking exercise is this idea of the astronaut overview effect, which when those astronauts are like up there and looking at the Earth, and it's just small little like blue marble, one little marble. Like when they come back here, there's something that happens to their brain that they can't really comprehend, because when you're here, you have all this. It's me, it's you. We're different. We aren't the same. We have all these things. I'm tall. I'm short. I'm this. I'm that. And yet, when they're up there, they see this like little blue marble that looks so insignificant, and it reminds them of our shared humanity. And I think about things as simple as if I go watch a soccer game, when we wear that same jersey, it doesn't matter what's going on. We just want our team to win. It doesn't, like, we are mad at the ref for the wrong calls. We are hugging each other. There's something about a shared humanity that I want to spend more time talking about in the simplest, littlest ways possible, to remind everyone that we have that in common, not just with each other, but with the planet. What does that bring up for you?
It brings up that the opportunity is there always to design and highlight our shared humanity, and there are just universal experiences that, you all the way back home and me on the other side, of the globe, we share the same interests in the work we want to do. Starting from even our emotions, the context, the degrees, might vary. However, we're all emotional beings. We all share a body. There's so much more that we share, and that can be used as bridges of connection than highlighting the differences. And then again, there's beauty in differences as well, and embracing those too. So yes, there should be more conversations about this and how to bring that more in the in the way we are as relational beings. And again, it comes back to really the inner work. I feel change starts individually, and then that is where the ripple begins.
That's beautiful. And so, what an amazing conversation, right? We talked about the importance of starting with the self. Starting with the self was an exercise around looking at your own life as if it were a movie from you were a kid, finding those peak experiences of emotions and learning how to observe them as a curious detective as opposed to a judge, and then doing the work of trying to understand those better, reframe them better, and see how they affect you today. And then we talked about the importance of modeling. And modeling for younger people means starting with how we embody the values that we claim that we believe in. And we talked about an exercise once again to check between what you say to the kids and what you embody in front of the kids. And within that, there was no judgment. If you notice that you didn't embody what you wanted to embody, you can slowly just go back and try to do better, because from that point you can then learn how to mirror. And the mirroring part is one that was really interesting, because before talking about it, we talked about things that the adults and the kids face today, which is our relationship with technology. And the two steps we talked about were, one, how do you balance so you can spend some time away from technology? Like I said, don't go to the bathroom with it. But also we talked about when you do use technology, what are the things that you feed your algorithm so it can feed back to you? And you can practice looking for the inspirational pages, looking for the acts of kindness, looking for the uplifting experiences online, so the algorithm can then spit that back to you. And then you can mirror that for the kids in order to create the kind of space where flourishing can happen. And we also talked about the importance of agreeing and understanding that this is a forever journey. We're playing an infinite game. You will never be done, and that's beautiful. The goal of the game is not to win the game. The goal is to keep the game going. And if you have that perspective, you can understand the importance of repairing, right? So you try. It doesn't go well. You come back to repair. And within repairing, we talked about looking at your ego, learning how to say sorry. It's all good. Don't take your life so seriously. Don't be so serious, adult, parent, teacher, educator. You can be wrong sometimes, and it's okay to come back and admit to yourself that you were wrong, and to tell a little kid that my bad, yo, my bad. It was my brain that did it. And I promise you, you will see how I will control my brain better next time. Like, make it a fun thing. So all of those principles guided this conversation, and we gave practical tools that anybody who's listening can employ right away. And we close with our guiding beliefs. Kindness is infinite. Actions matter. We all have capacity for good. And we have a shared humanity with each other. It's been a beautiful conversation. Noor, what's your last word for people who are listening and checking in?
Super grateful for this experience and exchange, and enjoy the process.
Enjoy the process, and until next time, choose kindness. Thanks, Noor.